Here. Are you excited to be here? Before we start, we're going to do something really special. We've not done this before, or not. Well, no, we haven't done this before, but we're going to do something special. I'm going to ask for a gentleman to come up here. Blake, would you come up here if you don't mind? Blake is about to head off to Navy. Is it Navy? To the Navy, not to Navy, but to the Navy. Didn't why am I going to go back that far? Because I'm like the village people. I wasn't going to say it. I wasn't going to say it, but village people had one in the Navy. So you're leaving tomorrow. Where are you heading to?
I'll go to Jacksonville tomorrow, stay the night, get up Tuesday morning, do a final med check, and then after that we have a little going away ceremony, and then I'm on a plane to Chicago.
All right, couple things I got to ask you first. Can you swim?
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's good. Second thing is, where the trouble I think you're going to have, you know that the Navy has dress whites.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I've seen you before. You get pretty dirty. You're gonna have to, you understand? So you need to buy some Clorox. So okay, all right, good. All right, what I want to do is just say a word of prayer for him, and if you guys would pray, it's your space for us right now. We want to pray for Blake going off to and for Mama, who's letting him go off, or not. Well, you ain't got much say in it anymore when he's a grown man, but you're going to be going with him with your heart. So let's pray. Father God, I just thank you for Blake, and I thank you for him being willing to give his service in this capacity to go into the Navy and to go into military service. Father, we pray for him. We pray for your guidance and direction as he goes through all his basics and all the things that he's going through, Father. We pray, Lord, that as he meets new people and encounters new situations, Lord, that he will bring your presence into those situations. We pray protection upon him, protection upon his unit, protection upon all the others that are in military, and we thank you so much, Lord, for his service to you and to us in this capacity. Be with him and give him strength and courage, and let him know that we are so thankful for what he's doing on behalf of us. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, brother. Good luck, okay? Try not to swim, but if you have to swim, do swim. So the reason I'm excited about being here today, this is a week after Easter, okay? This is the Sunday after Easter. And the Sunday after Easter, in a lot of churches, in a lot of situations, I posted something that a friend of mine had put on Facebook. This is a low attendance Sunday, is what a lot of people, because they over the party. See, so you're that group of people who said, well, I'm going to church on a day that's not Sunday. I'm going to, not Easter. I'm going to a day, sorry, it is Sunday. I'm like, I didn't get that far. You're here on a good day because we're launching a new message series. We're going to be launching a message series based on fire. How many of you have ever liked to sort of hang around a campfire or something like that? How many of you ever got in trouble for playing with fire before? Is anybody? My fireman back there even raised his hand back there. I'm liking that. I used to get in trouble for doing. I'm not a pyro maniac or anything like that, but we were. I liked campfires. Let me just say that. And I don't mind sticking anything in there to see what you can burn or cook inside of that. I liked when I was in the Boy Scouts starting a fire from nothing to see. That was the big thing, to see who could start a fire with wet wood. That was always one of the things that showed whether you're really a good scout and all. And fire, in our life, my dad was a volunteer fireman. My dad was a volunteer fireman for over 50 years. So that's a pretty long time to be a fireman. And my whole life in this small town and my family's life revolved around when the siren would go off, there was a fire. Do you understand this? And so when it was before pagers. I remember growing up before pagers, before they were toned out, before all the modern equipment that they have. Now later on, after 50 years in his latter stages, he had walkie-talkies and all these things and all this stuff. But early on, when we heard that siren go off, no matter where we were, what we were doing, my dad hit the gas. Get in here, boys. We didn't even buckle up back then, so we were swung all over the back seat, as he's going. And we would have to stay at the fire station. If we were out and we heard it, later on as he got his walkie-talkies and things, we knew where the fire was. He had his turnout gear with him and would go straight to the fire. Fire, in my life, and in those situations, had a way of changing our direction. If we were at a ball game, didn't matter. We're not going to the ball game. If we got some other plans, fire changed our direction. In fact, I think fire changed a lot of directions. Have you ever got burned before? It didn't matter what you were doing before. When you got burned, it changes your direction. I was putting some wood, some logs in the fire this winter, And I was throwing them in there, and you know how you poke it with the stick because, I'm a pyromaniac, so I'm just playing in the fire. And one of the logs rolled out. And while it was rolling out, before I thought about it, I just sort of, as it rolled, blocked it with my hand so it wouldn't roll on the carpet. Let me just say, don't do that. Don't let that roll, because it rolled and the embers burned. You can see a little scar right there. You can't see, but I can see it. That burned me where that ashes got, where the embers on there got on there and burned. Fire has a way of redirecting our attention. Over the course of the next several weeks, we're going to talk about how God is involved and speaks to us through fire, guides us through fire, points us in the directions we need to do, purifies us through fire, and we're going to talk about these things revolving around fire. In fact, there's going to be a week where we're going to talk about the fire of fellowship, where fellowship happens around fire, and we're going to have a big we're having a bonfire. We're going to have a good time of fellowship. Not here on that day, but because if I could, I would. I think CCF, you guys are on retreat that weekend, so y'all going to be at a different type of fire out there. So fire has a way of redirecting us or changing our direction. Now, let me tell you something else about my past. My past, I have messed up so many things in my life, I can't even keep count of them anymore. Do you understand what I mean? I don't know about you, so I know you guys are far more perfect than I am. You've never made mistakes. You've never messed up. You've never flunked a test. You've never flunked a class. You've never been fired from a job. You all have got it made in the shade, and y'all are just chillaxing. Just taking it easy and all. But me, on the other hand, I got a bad past. I have messed up so many things, I can't even tell you the number of things I've messed up. And what I fear, and have always feared, is that my past will mess up my future. You understand? Now, for you guys on this side, and I say on this side because I don't see any, there's some college people over here, I know some are still in college. I know that those grades that you make your freshman year matter. You understand what I'm saying? You don't think they matter, but they do. Especially when you get below the 2.0 GPA. And if you hung around me in my day, we were below the 1.5 GPA at one point in time. You understand? So and let me tell you, that affects your job hunting. that affects finding a job. That affects employment later on. So I've always been afraid that my past will mess up my future. Now, some of us have different things that our past have. Some of us have had past relationships. Some of us had past situations. Some of us have had loss of loved ones. Some of us had past sicknesses that we're getting over, and we're always wondering, is it going to come back? Is that sickness going to come back? And we worry about our past affecting our future. And so this morning, if you're in that position where you've had a past, or your past has affected you, this morning's message is for you, to let you know that God still has a plan for you. Now, right now, my voice is leaving me, so Joel, I'm going to ask you to do something for me, because I'm going to turn this air conditioning down, because this is the way it rolls here. I'm going to turn this air conditioning down. Could you come up and read the scripture while I'm turning this air conditioning down? This is like on the spot, spontaneous. It's not even rehearsed, and she's going to put it right up there on the screen. Joel's going to read this, and I'm going to bump the air conditioning. Is anybody else hot? A little bit, good, because I'm going to do that. All right, Joel, you take it from here. Give him a round of applause to do that. Yeah. The reason I could call Joel and do that is because he has to read the word when he's singing them to you so he can see them back on that little screen. I couldn't see them back there. I got to have it on like 16 or 24 font for me to read it. So the story is about Moses. It's about Moses after his... How many of you have seen The Prince of Egypt? Seen that? Is it a Disney movie? Is that who did it? The Disney movie and all? The what? Pixar? DreamWorks. Okay. So basically Moses, through a series of events, and we're not going to talk about them in detail this morning, through a series of events, becomes the surrogate grandson of Pharaoh. He becomes the grandson of Pharaoh during a time when the Egyptians are persecuting the Jewish nation, the Israelites. Now, Moses, even though he's an Israelite, has been raised by Pharaoh's daughter to be the grandson of Pharaoh. And he has not been out in the hardship that his brothers and sisters and his cousins and his family of the Israelites has been through. Moses had been raised in the palace, in the castle, in the kingdom, in the Pharaoh's courts. Now, that made him pretty wise and very understanding. He had the best teachers, had all of these things, but there was a separation between him and his Jewish brothers, his Israelite brothers and sisters, and his family, his culture, if you will. Moses is out walking around one day. He's probably in his late 30s, early 40s, and he's walking around one day. And as he's walking around out among where the Israelites are basically the slaves for the Egyptians, he sees one of the slave masters beating and abusing one of his fellow Israelites. And when he sees this, it bothers him. He sees this injustice happening, and it bothers him so much that he basically looks left and looks right, and he kills this guy that's abusing this other Israelite. Once he kills him, he goes around and hides the body in the sand, and he goes back to the palace. So now he's killed an Egyptian, and he's not an Egyptian. But nobody's seen him. So the next day he goes walking around, and he comes back into the same area where the Israelites are doing their slave work underneath the slave masters, and two Israelites are fighting one another. Two of the same nation, two of the same country, two of the same heritage are fighting each other. And Moses jumps in between them, pushes them apart, and says, "What are you guys doing? You're brothers. You're not his slave master. What are you doing?" And the one who was abusing the other one or beating up the other one or maybe had the upper hand, I don't know, said, "Well, who made you over us? Who put you in charge? What are you going to do, kill us or kill me like you did that Egyptian yesterday when you buried him in the sand?" And Moses thought, "Oh my goodness, what was hidden is now found out. What no one knew, what I thought I got away with, now is known. What's Pharaoh going to do?" Well, sure enough, Pharaoh don't like Hebrews' grandson killing other Egyptians. So Pharaoh sought to kill Moses. Moses flees and goes to this foreign land that we heard Joel read about called Midian. And he flees out there, and through a series of events, he gets married, he has some children, and he starts working for his father-in-law. Now we find out in this that he works for his father-in-law, and his father-in-law's name is Jethro. And it says that in this passage that Moses is taking Jethro's sheep, and he's headed across the wilderness, and he's at the far side of the wilderness. Now I didn't know the wilderness had a near side and a far side. Maybe that. But I don't know about you, but the far side in the wilderness probably is not near anything. It's probably a place of isolation. It's probably a place where people feel maybe alone, or they're that worse thing than feeling alone. I don't know if for me they're alone with their thoughts. Have you ever been in that place where you're just sort of away and it's just you and your thoughts and the things and all the things? And I'm thinking Moses is at the farthest part that he can get in the wilderness. You can't get any farther. You can't get any more alone. You can't get any more desolate. You can't get any more alone with your thoughts. And I'm wondering, what's his thoughts going through his mind at this time? Maybe it's something like, how did I get here? I can't believe that in a moment of rage, I lost everything. I can't believe my past actions have got me here. I'm out here in the middle of nowhere where nobody knows me, at the furthest part of everything. I've lost everything. I don't even have my own sheep. All I have is my father-in-law's stuff. I've lost everything. I used to lead people. I was one of the top powerful people in Egypt. And now I lead my father-in-law's sheep. This has to be a hit to his ego, I would think. Wouldn't you? Have you had a hit to your ego before? Maybe decisions you made, or maybe things that you've done, maybe it's put you in a position where you felt all alone. Maybe you've been laid off from your job. Maybe you've had a broken relationship, a broken marriage. Maybe you've got the loss of a loved one through death or sickness or whatever. Maybe you and your friend had an argument and now you feel all alone. Maybe sickness is robbing you from joy and you feel all alone. Maybe you're like a college student who's had everything and their parents helped them out or took care or gave them. They always had their parents to fall back to, and you get to college and now you don't have that luxury. Now your mistakes fall on your shoulders. And now when you blow your money, there's none to make it the rest of the month, and you have to scrounge and scrape and do those things. And where you had all this independence and you could do these things and you're living on other people's money, now it's your own, it gets tough. Maybe you're at the beginning of a relationship or a beginning of your life outside of college, and you're starting to find out how hard it is when they want you to pay those school loans back. And so we hear that Moses is at the far side at this time, and then something strange happens. There's this bush out in the wilderness on fire. But the bush is not burning or not being consumed. You understand? You put something in the fire, fire consumes it. This bush is burning but remains a bush. This bush is burning and doesn't change colors to black, to ashes. It stays green, but it's burning. There's this fire in it. And this angel appears to Moses, or God appears to Moses through this fire. See, here's my first thing that's for your fill in the blank. The flame of God reminds us we're not alone. Many of us feel like that we're alone, but it reminds us more than we're not alone. It reminds us that God hasn't forgotten us. See, just because of your past, God, or my past, God hasn't forgotten us. And the flame of God can remind us of that. And let me say this. The interesting thing is, why a flame? Have you ever thought about that? Why a burning bush? If God wanted to get Moses' attention and he's got sheep out there, why not a lion or a bear or something come and attack the sheep? It's just this oddity, this thing. See, I found this out. God knows how to get our attention. God knows how to get your attention where you are, even if you're at the far side of the wilderness. Even if you feel like you're alone and isolated, even if you feel like your past has put you so far away from anything, God knows how to get your attention. And he will. Moses sees this strange sight, it says. And he says, I think I'll go over and check it out. So Moses was not drawn to the fire because he knew it was God. Do you understand that? He sees a fire and a bush on fire. He doesn't see God. He doesn't see an angel. He doesn't see that revelation. All he sees is a fire, a bush on fire, and it's not burning. And it gets his curiosity up. And at that point, Moses says, I think I'll go over and check this out. And he gets closer to the fire. Let me tell you something about getting closer to the fire. He's not getting closer to the fire, he's getting closer to God. And let me tell you, we all need to be moving closer to God. See, when God gets our attention, we have to move closer to find out more. When God gets your attention, you have to move closer to God to be able to find out more. For many of us, we see God active in His world, or we see things that... Have you ever felt like you connected with something? Something's happening in the grocery store. I don't know about you, but it's happened to me before. There's an argument between people in the store. They're like, usually it's at Walmart. It happens all the time at Walmart. I don't know. Stuff happens at Walmart. You just go hang out at Walmart. There's stuff that happens. You know, a mama and a child arguing, or adults arguing, or just something doing. And you're sitting there and you're going, somebody ought to do something. And yet, you keep looking for somebody to do something, and yet you go on. And you don't do something. Or maybe there's something else that's going on. Somebody's in trouble, and they're having distress in their life. And you've heard about the situations. Maybe their transportation is messed up. They don't have a way to get somewhere. And you're like, somebody ought to do something about that. Maybe somebody's having a low spot in their life. And you can tell by their facial expression, they're just not having a good day. I mean, we show that. I don't know if you know that. You show that look on your face when you're not having a good day. You can hear it in the tone of your voice. You can see it in your lack of bounce in your step. I come into work sometimes, and Lori sits at one of the desks over there, and when her head is in her face, this is what she looks like. I'm like, that ain't a good day. She's staring at her computer like this. I'm like, this isn't a good day. I can come into the office, and Tasha just walked in. I can come into the office, and upstairs when I go in the office, I can see Natasha, and I can tell whether it's going to be a good day or a bad day. If she's sitting up high in that seat, doing the computer stuff, that's something. It's going to be a good day. I come in, and she's slumped back like this and typing like this, and I walk into the door, and she just goes, good morning. I'm like, oh, crap. I said, I got to go. I got to go. I can tell with my wife. I'm not going to tell you those signs of my wife because she is sitting back there, but I can tell when it's going to be a good day or not going to be a good day. See, this stuff is happening all around us. These things that are burning bushes are happening all around us. But you don't find out what God wants to say to you until you move closer. So, what's your burning bush this morning? What's your burning bush, and would you know it if you saw it? And if you saw it, would you just walk on by? I think many of us has walked on by our burning bush many times. See, one of the things I found about burning bushes, and I'm using this phrase burning bush because it's different for us. God knows what your burning bush should be, or what your burning bush is. God knows what the flame is that will get your attention. So when I talk about burning bush, I'm not talking about the physical bush. Do you get this? Do you understand that? Something's gotten your attention before. God's gotten your attention before. But here's what I found in my life. The redirecting fire of God looks strange at first. It's not until we come closer that we learn more about it. When you see the flame of God, when you see the thing that's going to change your direction, that God's using to change your direction, it's going to look strange to begin with from a distance. But as you take steps closer and move closer, you learn more about it. So Moses makes these steps and steps closer to find out, and then he encounters the bush on fire closer, and something happens. In verse 4 it says, when the Lord saw that he'd gone over to look, God called to him from within the bush. From within the fire, God called and said, Moses, Moses. Now I'm freaking out right now. I don't know about you. I don't see many bushes that catch on fire and don't burn up, but if I walk over there and that bush starts talking to me, I don't know around, but the thing is, it's not talking in generalities. It's not saying, hey, you, Could you come over here? Hey, it said his name. Moses. Moses. And Moses says, here I am. See, here's one of the things that I find out about this. If you remember where Moses is, he's at the furthest part of being away in isolation, questioning himself about how did I get here? What did I do? My past is going to rule over me all my life. I've lost so much. Nobody can use me. Nothing. I'm just a sheep herder for my father-in-law. But all that said, none of that was a deterrent for God speaking to Moses. Moses' past didn't stop God from showing up in his life and being there in his present. It didn't stop God from not only showing up, but calling him by name. But remember, it took Moses stepping closer. It's out of curiosity. He wasn't looking for God. He just felt compelled to come toward this bush. See, I just want to tell you this, and some of us have forgotten this. God never forgets your name, no matter how far you've moved away from him. God knows you, and he knows your situation. He knows your fears, your hurts, and your pains. He knows your failures. He knows the times that you've tried and failed. He knows the times that you have betrayed him. The times that you have literally gone 180 opposite of what God is calling you. He knows these things. And still he's going to come to you. God never forgets our name, no matter how far we go into the wilderness. Moses' response, do you remember what he said? 3 words. Everybody, what? Here I am. Say that. One more time. Say that. Here I am. Now, what would you translate that? What does that mean to you? What does here I am mean to you? To me, it means I'm available. Here I am. See, for many of us in this room, we've seen the revelation of that burning bush in our life. We've actually taken steps closer and to understand it more. We've actually heard God call our name. But that response of I'm available or here I am, it's been kind of hard to say recently because our past is weighing on us. We're more dwelling in what we've lost than what God has for us to gain. So we dwell and we live in the past, and we let it rob us of our present joy. Let me tell you this. God tells him, he said, take off your sandals. The place that you're standing is holy ground. Let me tell you this. Wherever you encounter God is a holy place. If you encounter God at Walmart, that's a holy place. If you encounter God in this church, that's a holy place. If you encounter God in a conversation with someone else, that is a holy place. You are standing on a holy place. There are plenty of places that are holy that we know. You go and you're involved in a Christian fellowship of some type. That's a holy place. When you're doing your morning or daily devotional, or so you're just in the Word or in the Bible, that's a holy place. If you're in a Bible study, that's a holy place. When you're serving and helping others, that's a holy place. When you're worshiping God through music, through song, and just through your life, that's a holy place. There's a lot of holy places. Sometimes we keep looking for them. We think, well, will they ever show up? I would say to you, many of the holy places have never left. Because where God is, that is a holy place. So God then begins to tell Moses who he is. I'm the God of your father, Abraham, and his son Isaac. And he goes on this whole thing and gives him this whole bunch of things about, I am the God of them. He makes himself known. Let me tell you this. When you come to God, he's going to remove your doubts and your fears. But you got to come to him. You You've got to come to God. And when you come to Him in that holy place, God is going to continue to speak to you more than just your name. He's going to remind you of who He is. Because the truth is, many of us have forgotten that. We've forgotten how powerful God is. And so He's going to remove those doubts and fears. He goes on to tell Moses, I've seen what's been going on over in Egypt. And I've heard the cry of those people. And I've seen my people get abused and taken advantage of. And I've seen all of these things. I've seen their situation. I've heard their cry. I know they're hurting mentally. I know they're hurting physically. I know they're hurting emotionally. I know they're hurting spiritually. And I've heard them. And I'm about to do something about it. Because that bothers me. Now, here's the interesting thing about that. It bothered Moses too. If you rewind to what got Moses in trouble, Moses was upset because the Egyptian was abusing the Hebrew slave. And he killed him. Moses was upset because two of them were fighting over nothing. And he stepped in. Moses doesn't tolerate injustice. The problem is, he was trying to take care of injustice under his own power. See, he wasn't checking with God about that. He just killed the guy right on his own. He wasn't checking with God. He steps in there in between the two and gets in there. And all those actions cost him everything because he was doing it without God. See, a lot of us in this room here, we're doing some good stuff, but we're doing it without God. We're doing it under our own strength. And let me tell you, there's nothing that will get you to the far side of the wilderness quicker than doing things under your own power. I'll testify to you about that. I'll testify about what the wilderness looks like when you get so numb. You're numb to the bad, but you become numb to the good. Neither one affects you. You just float through life. Good doesn't make you feel bad. Good. Bad doesn't make you feel bad. You just existing. That's a bad place to be. And when you work under your own power, you will quickly get to that point. And do not think you won't. Don't think you won't get there. Don't think you're above the reality of your own strength failing you. See, and what's happening in this story is God is connecting to a part of Moses that He wired Moses to be like that. He wired Moses not to like injustice. He wired Moses in his DNA not to tolerate these things. It was wired in him, and made in God's image. You and I are made in God's image. There's certain things that you are wired in. So when God sees that, He knows how to connect with you. And He tells Moses, He says, Moses, I know you. And I'm about to send you to Pharaoh. And you're going to go back to Pharaoh, and you're going to bring my people out of Egypt. See, God said, I'm coming to help my people. And I'm choosing you to be a part of my plan. See, God invites Moses to join Him. And I would say today that God is inviting you to join Him in His plan to make a difference in this world. See, your failures and your past, my failures and my past, isn't a deterrent to God coming to help. Now Moses hears this, and God's inviting him to come and be a part of His plan. So the next reservation. Now you remember, he's already moved. He's up here, right up in the fire, right up next to the fire, and he hears God calling him by name, and he knows he's singled out. He knows something. He's at that holy place in that moment. And even in that moment, this information is so overwhelming. What do? And he's communicating with God. And he's asking God, he's like, what if? Well, who am I? I'm nothing. I don't even have my own sheep. I could understand if he would have done this 40 years ago before I killed that guy. I could understand that. But now, I don't understand. And so all his fears and things start coming out. But he's sharing them with God. See, Moses sees himself through his past failures. victories. God sees you not through your past failures, but He sees you through your future victories with Him. That's His view. See, but Moses, up until this point, Moses doesn't have a reference point of what it's like for God to work through him. You ever thought about that? He's encountering God at a bush in the middle of nowhere. Everything up to that point, he doesn't know what it's like for God to work through him. He doesn't know what it's like to be obedient and listen to what God is leading him to do and stepping out in faith and doing what God says. He didn't know. And for some of us in this room, we don't know. We don't know what it's like. We don't have a reference point for God to work through us. And so this is what Moses' struggle was. But see, God tells him these things that you and I and we and Moses need to hear. He says, I'll be with you. I will be with you. If I'm calling you to do something, if I'm calling you to be this person that I see the victory coming down the road, if I'm calling you to be there, I'm not leaving you alone. Even when you thought you were alone, even when you were lonely in the wilderness, you weren't alone, because I was with you. And I am with you now. And Moses, his direction changed. Where he's heading to the far end of the wilderness, now he's turned around and he's headed back to Egypt. See, fire has a way of redirecting us when we come closer to God. See, God is passionate. He's big. He's holy. And He can redirect your attention through fire if you move closer to Him. So what's holding you back? Maybe you're like me. I worry about what everybody else is going to think. Anybody else in here a people pleaser? I'm a people pleaser. I hate not to make people's. I hate not to please people. I try to please people I don't even know. Do you understand? I try to say things or do things to make a stranger feel comfortable, and I don't even know them. I don't even know what they think. You know, I thought, man, what will people think about what I'm wearing? I don't even know who they are. And I'm thinking about what I'm wearing. I'm thinking about what I'm saying. I'm thinking about what I'm doing. I'm thinking about where I'm going. I'm thinking about all this all the time. Maybe you're afraid of what people will think when you start working with the power of God with you instead of working under your own power. Because it's going to look strange at first. Remember, it looks strange when Moses goes to the fire. The closer he gets, it makes more sense. And he changes his direction. This morning, we're going to share in Holy Communion. Holy Communion is a holy place. It's a place where I guarantee you will encounter your burning bush. I guarantee when you come to communion, it is a place where you will hear from God. And He will call you by name. But you got to be listening. You got to not just physically be able to move closer. See, you can get up out of the aisle and walk down that aisle, and your health and your energy, even if you're on crutches, can get down the aisle to communion. But see, for many of us, we've moved closer with our physical body, but we haven't moved with our heart. We haven't heard what God is saying. See, we don't take it as a holy place. We take it as a holy moment. A point in time. That's it. I'm telling you, this is a holy place. And the God of the universe wants to speak to you. He doesn't care about your past. He doesn't care about your past failures. He doesn't care about any of that. He's not worried about your past at all. He's thinking about your future victories. And He wants to tell you about them. So this morning we're going to do communion a little bit different. This communion, this front rows of chairs are empty. These front row of chairs are now a prayer area. From these front rows of chairs all the way up here is a prayer area. And this morning, when you have the opportunity to take communion, and you come forward to take communion, I want you to take the time not just to go through the motions of taking communion, but to come to that holy place. To listen for God's voice that says, Betty, Carolyn, Susan, Lori, Chewy, that says your name, and you move closer. And listen to what He's calling you to do. Listen for the plans that He has. Listen for what He's going to say to you. And I promise you, you won't leave disappointed. Take time up here. Sit down if you want to. Kneel down. You can kneel down in this area. You can sit on the stage. It doesn't matter. This is your time. Because some of us are dying in the wilderness. Some of us have lost our way. Some of us are so afraid about what tomorrow holds we can't even hardly breathe. And God says, I need to use you now because you'll work under my strength and not your own. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to have two stations. We'll serve this side and we'll serve communion on this side. Ronnie and Natasha will be over here serving communion. Jody and I will be over here serving communion. You come forward. We'll figure it out. You know, these two rows come in here. You can hang out in this area. And these two rows come in here and you hang out. God might even be telling you, you need to go over and pray for somebody. You hear me? Don't you worry about what it looks like. If He lays that on your heart, the God of the universe tells you, you overcome your fears. You may not even know that person, but you may get that call on your heart. And it's going to be